So many people here.
I know, it's exciting.
Ready?
Recording in progress.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our work session of March 22nd, 2022. Can I have a motion to call the work session to order?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we've got Chris online. So I like how many people we have here. So we are going to start. We have a presentation from NYSERDA, but I'm sure you all are not that interested in it. So we're going to first do a presentation. We need way more teams to win states because I love how many people we have here. So today, I'm going to stand up. Can I stand down there? Yep. All right. Great. So, okay, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lisa Katz. I am the town supervisor. And for those of you online, I don't know if you can see, but we've got a lot of people here, and most of them are the members of our new state champion boys swim and dive team from Greeley, our varsity swim and dive team. So welcome and congratulations. You guys are amazing. And some of you I've known for a long time, but I am the mother of a former swimmer, and I know how difficult it is and what an amazing feat this is. And we wanted to just spend tonight and say thank you and congratulations. And certainly before we congratulate you, I see some of your parents here. Swim meets are so fun to go to, so I think you need to give your parents a round of applause as well. Thank you for all your support, moms and dads. So for all of you, we have a proclamation that the town wants to give you all, and I'm going to read it out loud. Whereas the town of Newcastle is proud to be home to the outstanding Horace Greeley High School. And whereas, in addition to achieving excellence in education and extracurricular areas, the school and town now celebrate being home to the varsity boys swim and dive 2022 team state and federation champions. Yay! Whereas the athleticism, skill, dedication, enthusiasm, and heart with which the 2022 Horace Greeley Quakers swam and dove this season is a credit to the varsity program that boasts 3 championships this season: undefeated Conference 1, Section 1, and now the Team State and Federation title. Whereas the Newcastle Town Board enthusiastically applauds the undefeated season record that culminated in a state championship and the legacy of success that this talented swim and dive team has inspired. That's all you guys. Now, therefore, the town board of the town of Newcastle, in recognition of the aforementioned outstanding accomplishments, do hereby proclaim tomorrow, March 23rd, 2022, as 2022 Horace Greeley Boys Swim and Dive Team Day in the town of Newcastle. And we urge all citizens of Chappaqua to recognize their achievements and the distinction they bring to the community, and encourage all citizens to applaud and celebrate this success. Congratulations, boys. And your names, this will be tomorrow on our Jumbotron in front of Bell, that tomorrow is your day. And I want to just personally call each of you up who are here. I don't think everyone's here, but by name, please forgive me if I mispronounce some of your names, and give special recognition to our seniors who are leaving us: Alex Dew, Yosef Kamal, Adam Knack, Nikita Sakharuk, and Jonathan Sue. Did I miss anyone? I think that's all. All right, well, why don't you guys come up first? We are giving you some not super large, but keys to the city or the town. So here you go. Thank you. Oops. Congratulations. Are you guys all swimming in college?
Thank you.
You are?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, they're not that bad. They're not.
Was it
They're
open?
super exciting. Well, we can't tell you that. All right, and then why don't we call up everyone else who's here? Mason Ackerman, if you're here. Benjamin Chang. Yay. We're going to take a picture, everyone, together. Congratulations. Hudson Chung. David Coppola. Congratulations. Jack Cornish. Eric Engel. Take this one. Thank you. Oliver Engel. Patrick Fang. Gabriel Grata. Lawrence Galata. Jaden Holmes. Congratulations. Zayn Hussein. Daniel Lee. Oh, I'm going to mess up this name. Zhao Chuan Liang. Yay, did I mess it up? Congratulations. Jamie Lynch. Thank you. Zhang Ma. Thank you. Connor McHugh. Oops. Thank you. Arjun Menon. Jack Moran. Eric Nadecki. Okay. Rory O'Connor. Tristan Payne. I like your sweatshirts. Where am I? Trey Schloman. I try to be so... Okay, this one. Thank you. Where am I? Jed Way. Michael Wayne. And Evan Wool. This one, just calling your name. All right, and then, oh my gosh. There you go. Thank you. And then, of course, your two coaches with whom you would not be here, Coach Meg Kaplan and Coach Jean Kellerman. Take the rest of the keys. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
And the proclamation.
And the proclamation, but we're going to take a picture.
Oh, pictures, boys.
So do you guys want to come down and let's take a picture? We want to take pictures with the winning team.
You need to hit the back row.
I'm not sure where this picture is taken. Yeah.
We're just going to stand here and face that way.
Get me in that front row.
Let's go. Hit the back row, boys.
Box on.
Yusuf and Alex. You guys hold that.
There you go. More on the other side.
Wait, can somebody, Jill, can you take? Yeah. Wait, Coach, you should be right. All right. Okay. Okay, say cheese. Swim. All right. right, congratulations, boys.
Congratulations.
Homework.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Think homework. Think lots of homework.
That I will imagine is going to be proudly hung in the school.
Yes, that's correct. Take
Awesome.
it back to them. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you guys for coming.
It's fun to see you up there.
Fun to be up there.
Very at home. Thank you. That was so nice.
I'm a swim mom. I appreciate the dedication it takes. It's unbelievable.
I know swim moms, it's a lot of work. It's a lot. Mason, that was Christine's son, too bad.
What are they here for?
Oh, absolutely. We are involved.
They're here for presentation.
Oh, okay.
So for one of them.
Oh, my, thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And thank you for letting them go first.
Oh, yeah. All right. Aw. No one's here anymore. Oh, you're there. Yay. Thank you. Okay. So now we are going to move on. Thank you for letting us push that first. So do you want to should we do the presentation by NYSERDA first? Okay.
Would you want to
What's
do
going on here?
Gabriel's presentation first? Just thinking along the same lines. Is Gabriel there?
Yes, but we only have NYSERDA till 8 o'clock.
Ah, okay.
Do you guys
Okay.
mind
I just
waiting,
thinking-
hang out a few minutes? Okay, you look very nice. All right. Jill, you want to take it away?
Sure. So this evening, Sabrina, we have NYSERDA here to give a presentation on the stretch code. There's been, we have been informed by the Code Council that there are some issues with the stretch code version that the town board adopted in December in order to, I guess, bring us into compliance. There's some actions that we have to take. One of them would actually be repealing the stretch code that we have. And there have been some concerns that in light of supply chain issues and the inability to obtain certain key housing construction equipment, not equipment, but supplies, that there may be some undue hardship to our to prospective builders and residents who are trying to complete additions and things of that nature. So the board had expressed these concerns, and NYSERDA is here to address them directly. We've also got members of our Sustainability Advisory Board. Kent is
If
here.
I may,
Oh, I'm sorry, Sabrina, go ahead.
if I may, so Jill is correct in that we were required to amend our existing stretch code to incorporate some new language, remove some language that the State Code Council was uncomfortable with. Last time you met, you had raised several valid concerns, and I had prepared an explanation for you, which really pointed to the fact that the New York Stretch Code is really a conservation code. And it doesn't affect supplies. You don't have to buy special products. And in my memo, I kind of walked you through what it was all about. My question to you guys is if you've had a chance to review that memorandum, if you have questions, if you'd like me to go through it. I do have with me tonight representatives from NYSERDA who are ready to go back and walk you through, the nuts and bolts of the stretch code if you want, but it's really up to the town board as to, kind of where you see needing more information.
Okay. And Ed, just to clarify, what we need to do is repeal the current law that's on the books, and then we're being asked to consider changes from the Code Council and adopt a new law.
That's correct. Amending to clarify certain provisions of the existing stretch code that was adopted last year to address what the Code Council thinks are ambiguities.
Got it. Okay. I think we would, while we have them here, let's hear from the representatives from NYSERDA. And they can talk, I was able to hear that presentation before, but I know other members of the board weren't, so I'd love to hear them speak right now. And then we can come back to you, Sabrina, with other questions after.
Sure, thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike Duane from NYSERDA. He's also joined by Chris Soy from NYSERDA as well. Mike, to you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. Sorry about my lighting here. I kind of look like I'm speaking from the cabinet of Dr. Caligari, but it's good to be here with you all and talking about the New York stretch again. So for those of you who didn't see the presentation first go round, I've got an abridged version that Sabrina and I and her committee worked on a bit. What is the New York Stretch Code? Of course, it's a readily adoptable local energy code that's been enabled by Article 11 of the New York State Energy Law, which went into effect in 1979. And it's a code that is about 10-11% more efficient than the current statewide energy code, which is the 2020 New York State Energy Code you see designated there. It's an overlay of that base code. So it prepares municipalities for future code cycles and essentially will follow the roughly 3-year cycle of the base New York State building codes and energy code. And it's nothing, it's not rocket science. It's not state of the art. It's essentially state of the shelf. It's best practices from other programs, but utilizes just, essentially a little bit more in aggregate than is required by the statewide energy code. Doesn't require any, super new, unavailable or unfamiliar products, nor does it require any significant change in the enforcement process. The important thing is that it's part of your work towards the Clean Energy Community Program incentives and action items. It is one of the top scoring, I think the second highest scoring action item at 1,200 points, where you are awarded $5,000 as a small community for adopting it, but more importantly, have access to numerous other grants that are offered by NYSERDA and the Clean Energy Community Program if you score high enough. And again, it does have to be adopted before and put in full effect before June 30th or by June 30th of this year. 10-11% more efficient than the current statewide code, with about a 1 to 2% incremental cost for new construction over the cost of one just built to the basic statewide energy code, with paybacks around 10 years or less, depending on the type of construction that you're looking at. It has terrific greenhouse gas reductions, however, because in aggregate, it does save that 10-11%, and has a number of other advantages, including that it addresses our biggest segment energy users, that of buildings, new construction and existing buildings in remodeling, just like the energy code, the base energy code does. Lots of long-term benefits of building better today. It saves folks energy and money. That money, it finds itself back into the community again. It's been proven for decades that energy efficiency dollars saved in your community stay in the community. And of course, there's lots of climate and community benefits. We know that there are significant statewide efforts to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, the CLCPA being one of them and one of the big drivers. And of course, there's lots of workforce development going on around green workforce expansion. And the rest of the benefits you see here as well. The Energy Code and the New York Stretch results in more resilient buildings and communities, decidedly healthier indoor environments, and of course, particularly on the energy side, greater occupant satisfaction and comfort. And then it does also promote some performance compliance and testing, like the base New York Code does. Again, this is something that has been done in New York State because of Article 11 of the energy law. Was popular in a number of Hudson Valley and Long Island communities. Back in the 20, 30 years ago, there were some communities who were adopting, if any of you remember, the Energy Star for Homes program as their New York Stretch Code. But they were doing it community by community. There were a lot of different codes being adopted. So one of the goals of NYSERDA was to create one stretch code so that it would be common among communities that did adopt. As far as the cost impact goes, statewide, looking at two building types, single and multifamily, in all three climate zones, the incremental cost going from what is required already by the base energy code, statewide code, about a little over $2,000 for single family, and a little over $1,500 with those paybacks you see on the right, 5.5 for years, simple payback, and 9, just under 10 years for multifamily. And again, most importantly, this is based on the most restrictive and prescriptive provisions. Doesn't allow, it's not taking into account the flexibility you get from using all of the options available, and it doesn't account for using any NYSERDA or utility incentives, federal tax credits, etc. By climate zones, and Newcastle's in climate zone 4, so for homes in that range, you see focused in about a $2,500 incremental cost for single family, and about $1,500 for multifamily, with the payback more around 10 years. Again, without any use of incentives, which there are available from NYSERDA, from the New York Power Authority, and other utilities in the region that focus on a lot of the same elements of the New York Stretch, so that you can often access those incentives, or builders or homeowners or building developers can, to even further improve the payback. So what's different? Again, this is, incremental changes in a little bit in window performance, a little bit in insulation requirements, air leakage testing, a little bit improvement in electrical and lighting areas and mechanical. There are some provisions to help lower the soft costs. If a homeowner or a builder wants to add renewables or electric vehicle charging stations, they can do so because of the New York Stretch, and during construction to the New York Stretch, they're able to take care of some of the simple things you can do when you're building a house new. And then, again, some other odds and ends that are mentioned here. A lot of activity in your neighborhood. This is a fairly comprehensive list for the Hudson Valley. You can see Newcastle's still on there because last we had heard, you had adopted, and we hadn't heard an update till recently about the issues with Department of State and the Code Council. Lots of resources available for support. There's, of course, the adoption guide and model local law, the new language for the model local law, with everything squared away from the feedback from Department of State included in it. So again, all you have to do is pick it out and modify for your local adoption and filing with the Code Council and Department of State. There is training available and technical support from myself and the other energy code circuit riders, as well as a hotline for technical and interpretation assistance. And there's a whole slew of new code enforcement tools and checklists, as well as currently available materials that your code officials are using today. There's a single volume code manual that's in production, so that the New York stretch language, because it's an overlay, will appear in with the statewide New York State Energy Code. And it's all available right here on that website that you see here. And I'm sure that while I didn't want it to go there, it just did. You can find everything you need there, including some really interesting new materials. So, here's our contact list and how you get a hold of me. As always, you probably come away from this presentation, a half an hour from now or whatever, with questions yet, and kick yourself for not asking. But do feel free to pick up the phone and give me a call or an email. We can hook you up with Chris, who's on the line as well tonight, and support you the rest of the way. So thanks. I don't know if there's any questions right now, but we do have some time to answer them if there are.
Mike, this is Chris Hildenbrand. Thank you so much for that. I apologize for not being there. Hi, how are you? Apologize for not being there in person.
I'm doing great. I'm a grandpa for the 5th time as of today.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. Yeah. Well,
my 4th COVIDian G kid.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sorry you're spending your time here talking to us.
Yeah, it's cool.
Real quick, 2 quick questions. One, when is the New York Energy Code going to be updated to mandate this statewide?
Well, first off, it's a misconception that the New York stretch is being mandated statewide. Again, it's some of the misinformation that's flying around on the New York stretch. The way this works is the statewide code follows roughly a 3-year cycle, just like the national model codes, the International Code Council codes do, and they're updated every 3 years. Well, and the Code Council and the Department of State look at those national model codes, make enhancements for the state, and adopt them. Okay? So right now, the state code is based on the 2018 International Code. That is what is the 2020 base statewide energy code. The New York stretch code is roughly 10, 11% more efficient than that. And it's roughly equivalent to the next code that they are currently considering and plan on adopting in a year or 2, depending on how the process goes. And that is the 2021 International Energy Code. So the current New York stretch code is roughly equivalent to that 2021 International Code that we will adopt with New York specific changes in the next, 2023, 2024, if all goes well. And at that time, it's planned, I believe, that we will have another new version of the New York stretch for folks to adopt. that will go 10% above that. Because as you know, if you've heard the news about the Climate Act, the statewide Climate Act, which was voted in and adopted in 2019, the goal is net zero energy from our buildings in I'm going to forget this, 2040, I believe, or 2050. Anyway, it's right around the corner. So the codes are one way that we can do that. We can do it incrementally. And the New York stretch is a step in that direction, getting us a little bit ahead of the curve, but also able to take advantage of other incentives to help pay for the difference and make it even better than the 5 to 10, 11% payback we saw.
Great.
So, does that make sense?
That
Sorry
makes,
to hurl that all at you.
No, no,
That's as simple as I can make it.
makes a ton of sense. I appreciate the distinction. I guess where I was going is not that the stretch would become necessarily mandatory, but that the requirements of the current stretch would eventually find their way into the base code over the next, call it 3 years, 2 to 3 years, which is what you're saying. And then after that, there potentially be a new stretch code that would go 10% above that. I get all of that. And then the second piece I just wanted, which you just touched on, could you just describe what those incentives are? So thinking about what that would look like for someone who's potentially going to face additional costs, what that would consist of.
Well, again,
Mike, do you mind? This is Chris Roy from NYSERDA.
Go ahead.
So I do want to be clear about something. There are no direct incentives for the New York stretch. Meaning, like if a municipality adopts New York stretch, and there are 30 or so that have to date, if you're a builder or if you're a homeowner building in that community, there are no incentives for direct incentives for New York stretch. There are incentives for performance levels that go beyond New York stretch that NYSERDA offers. We have a new construction program. There are also utility incentives for certain equipment that you may put into a home. But I do want to be clear, there are no New York stretch specific incentives.
Yeah, what's important to understand, and I'll show you what we do have on the NYSERDA programs. Can you see my slide now?
No,
You can't.
we cannot.
I don't know what happened. It somehow stopped sharing. Now you should be able to, or at least in a second or two. So
Now we see it.
So again, the incentives that are available from a number of different places. They include some interesting support for new construction, for pilots to stretch to zero in communities, which is a really substantial program that we're hoping there's a couple of communities will take advantage of down your way. We know there's some interest. There's incentives for third-party support and such, and also at the utilities. In your case, the Power Authority. I think it's exclusively Power Authority and Con Ed in your neck of the woods, correct? Yes? No?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Con Ed.
Con Ed.
Okay. So the utilities have a number of incentives for going to higher insulation levels, for doing insulation retrofits to homes or to buildings, to custom whole building energy efficiency plans and higher efficiency HVAC, as does NYSERDA for things like heat pumps. And these are changing all the time. It's impossible to track them because of all the different utilities and the fact that they're adding and taking away incentives, but there's quite a few to take advantage of. Lighting is another one. So there's opportunities for builders and developers to take advantage of these incentives if they want, which could close the payback gap even further. that make sense? Or did I totally confuse you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it sort of makes sense, but I guess I heard slightly different views from Chris and you about the punchline, I guess.
Well,
I guess what I'm saying is, however you sort of slice it, there are ways for builders and homeowners to reduce the incremental costs of stretch code compliance.
Chris, I think it's potentially, and I don't think that they're guaranteed or for how long they're even offered. So I would say that's probably a potential, is what I'm hearing.
That's correct. The important distinction that Chris made was that they're not specifically targeted at New York Stretch. They're a combination of all of the energy efficiency efforts that are going on around the state and with utilities to reach essentially the same goals as NYSERDA has. But again, the utilities are doing most of those individual incentives and custom incentives, while NYSERDA is focusing on support for codes and other programs that support energy code adoption and higher compliance levels. Okay, I hope I didn't confuse you. It wasn't my intention.
Nope. That last piece was very helpful. Thank you.
All right, any questions for anyone else on the board?
Yeah, I do have one question. Thank you for coming to present to us again. I had listened to your presentation the first time around, and I was left with one issue of concern, which is indoor air quality. So I was wondering if you could address that as we look at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I just want to make sure we don't ignore, environmental concerns with indoor air quality as homes become more hermetically sealed. So with growth of mold spores and other, aerosols and the like. You did mention that in this presentation. You did mention that indoor air quality would be improved. So I'm just curious about that. I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. The important features to understand on the indoor air quality side is that there's more robust testing of mechanical ventilation systems required in the New York Stretch Code that make sure that the ventilation, the minimum mechanical ventilation that's required of every new home, for example, is properly tested and assurance is provided that it's working the way it should be working. Whereas with the current energy code and mechanical sections of the residential building code, for example, there isn't as stringent testing. In order to assure that this stuff is working right, it often has to be tested, and there's a lot less of that in the base building codes than there are in the energy code.
So are you saying that it's not a concern, or that there is more testing capability and requirements?
There's more testing requirements to make sure that the mechanical ventilation system that supplies fresh air for people, for inhabitants of the building, than there is in the base energy code or the building codes for that matter. So New York Stretch Code does a better job, especially in this time of COVID, of making sure that the home's ventilation system is actually doing what it should be doing and what is in the requirement for the equipment. Better sense that time?
Yeah, I hear that we'll be able to monitor the air quality a lot more and a lot better than we can now, but I'm not quite sure what these requirements will actually do to the air quality. But if we can monitor that, that is.
I'm trying to simplify
this is Chris again, if I may. Basically, what the code requires, what the state energy code requires, is that depending on the size of the house and the number of occupants, that there is basically enough fresh air supplied to the people living in that house, to support adequate indoor air quality. That's what the code requires. What New York Stretch requires is that mechanical, and this is what Mike was saying, what New York Stretch requires that the code doesn't currently require now is that mechanical equipment actually operates as it was designed, meaning it's great if you're designing a system to meet the indoor air requirements for the people living in your building, depending on the size and the number of occupants. But if there's no verification that the system actually operates as intended, then we have no way of knowing if the product as designed is actually being delivered. So that is what New York Stretch, what this requirement that Mike is referring to in New York Stretch does, where the New York Stretch or the New York State Code does not.
Thanks, Chris. That make better sense now?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, again, it helps us assure by actually testing through the code enforcement process. And it's usually conducted by the same person that every new home has to have a blower door test to test the air tightness. And if, depending on the construction of the heating and air conditioning ductwork, to test the duct tightness as well, because it can cause all kinds of indoor air quality problems, up to and including carbon monoxide backdrafting and what have you. The New York Stretch, again, assures, because it has to be tested by those same folks that do the blower door test or the duct testing on the house. They assure that ventilation system is delivering on its design. Whereas the base code, the regular code, doesn't assure that. It just says it has to be of this size and this motor efficiency, et cetera.
Chris and Mike, I have a few questions, some of which I think you may have already answered. But with regard to energy monitoring, I believe you said that was a component. I know it is for some of the commercial codes, but I'm not quite clear on the residential.
There's no monitoring required in residential in homes as such. There is some monitoring required for on the commercial side, but there's nothing on the residential side for monitoring.
Okay, thanks. And you presented the economic analysis in terms of the impact to residential homeowners. That's been adjusted for inflation and supply chain issues that are currently transpiring in the construction industry?
This is Chris again.
Go ahead.
The cost effectiveness analysis that we have for New York Stretch 2020 was published in 2019 at the same time that we published the code itself. We're in the process of updating that analysis, but it has not been updated since the pandemic has affected the cost of materials and does not reflect current rate of inflation. But we are. My expectation is that within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we will be publishing revision to that residential cost effectiveness analysis. We're using 2021 fuel prices, annual average fuel prices, as well as the most current that we can provide. Inputs for inflation, mortgage interest rates, et cetera, as well as adjusted incremental costs for materials. What I will say though, the cost effectiveness analysis that we that we publish that is currently available, it represents an incremental cost to the ordinary cost of construction. What that incremental cost would be to go from business as usual today to the standard that New York Stretch represents. And so that delta is, our expectation is that that delta is going to remain relatively stagnant because the cost of materials has gone up across the board, whether you're building to a New York Stretch standard or you're building to a state energy code standard. And as was mentioned, New York Stretch does not require the use of materials that aren't already going into buildings today. We're talking about insulation at a greater thickness. We're talking about windows with a somewhat better insulative value, et cetera. So, like the price, a concern that we kind of like hear across the board in the state in particular is with respect to the increased cost of lumber, as an example, and wood sheet goods. These are costs that are going to be incurred regardless of New York Stretch, and New York Stretch doesn't, it's going to have minimal, if any, impact on framing requirements. So I will say that, and again, I'll just reiterate, like I mentioned, we are in the process of updating our cost effectiveness analysis. Preliminarily, well, as I think was mentioned earlier, we see New York Stretch representing on average a 1 to 2% incremental cost increase relative to the total cost of new construction. Our initial, what we're seeing in revisions to our analysis doesn't look to change that. Doesn't look like that's changing, but again, we will have that revised analysis within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Great. I think we'll look forward to that updated analysis. And my final question was, I think you may have already stated, but I just wanted to confirm. You said 30 communities statewide have adopted the stretch code to date?
Yeah, it's actually 31, including Newcastle. So it's 30 other municipalities that I'm aware of as of this, as of today.
Great. Thank you.
And do you know specifically which ones in Westchester?
We do, yeah.
Here's the list in the Hudson Valley. So, Bedford, Cortland, Dobbs Ferry, Hastings, Irvington, Mamaroneck, New Rochelle, of course, North Salem, Ossining. If my memory serves me from my 1-year stay in Bedford Hills 50 years ago.
Nope, that was perfect. All right, any other questions?
No, that was helpful.
No, not for these guys. I do
Okay.
have, I just want to confirm with Sabrina about the, what she presented to us.
Thank you both very much.
My pleasure again. My time is your time. If you go away here tonight and you say, damn, I wish I would have asked DeWine this or whatever, feel free to pick up the phone and call. If I don't pick up right then, I'll get right back to you. So thank you for inviting me and us tonight and for being part of your effort here.
Really appreciate it. Congratulations again.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you very
congrats.
much.
I'm gonna go
Did
look
you
at
guys
baby.
have anything you wanted to add? No, I mean, you're here. Come on up.
Sabrina, did you want to add to that first? Well, I'm happy to answer questions. I think one thing that wasn't discussed and is really, we haven't been able to estimate is the, while it cost and we had in my memorandum, there was a nice table that kind of looked at a new construction project and a renovation project, what we can't capture right now is the cost and energy savings. So in the memorandum that was prepared for you, we looked at the 1 to 2%, we did 1.5%, we split the difference, and we looked at what the cost was. We broke it down in regards to a monthly mortgage payment, and I think it was roughly $53 and $27. And that we couldn't balance that with the money you're saving in not spending money on energy. So if you have a very well insulated house, you're not going to use as much oil if you have an oil furnace, right? You won't use as much electricity if you have electrical service for heat. So we weren't able to capture that savings, which I wanted to bring to your attention, because that monthly payment of an additional $53 or $27 may actually be less than that. I mean, I would say most certainly would be less than that. And I come from firsthand experience renovating a 300-year-old home. And putting in insulation in walls and windows, new windows, and that's not even looking at the New York Stretch energy requirements. That's just, going through and updating an older home. And the savings that I have seen as a homeowner in my energy expenses has been much less than when we first started the project. And I'm, year 18 into a home renovation project. But what the stretch does is that it ensures that construction is done to a higher energy standard, conservation standard, which on the other end, the homeowner will see savings from energy expenditures. And I think that that's important to know. We don't know what that is down to the dollar. We just know it will be a savings because you are not spending that energy. And that's really important to keep in the back of your minds. I also think it's important. I also provided you a kind of a snapshot of what my office has looked at in regards to the number of permits that have been applying this stretch standard, even though it had not been disapproved by the state until just recently. And I think Tom can speak to, what are the more frequent applications that we see. And today we're seeing many more renovations, home additions than we are whole house builds. We have one house permit that is in the process, and the rest are additions. And it's just a lot of windows and insulation. Tom, do you want to say anything to that?
Good evening, members of the board. And yes, Sabrina's right. The bulk of our look into this is increased insulation, a little better increase in windows. It's not a real hard stretch to get a stretch code compliant window from the major window distributors. And speaking with local window suppliers, it's the same lead time as if you ordered based on the 2020 code or the stretch code. The window has a little more upgrades, minimal expenses to get them. But what's important to know is you start saving money day one. This is not prorated and at some point you break even. The first day you install this, your product pays you back. And I believe, and the specifications will verify that better insulation pays back quicker, better windows pay back quicker. We've coming from a history of single pane windows, and then the double panes came in and they were the newest, latest, and greatest. Now we're at the forefront of technology, and this is the next step. We're not talking triple pane, we're not talking highly specialized, we're talking simple steps to save money. Energy will always increase in price, but if your house has a baseline where you save money every day, irregardless of what the cost of energy is, you will do better.
So just a quick note on that.
Sure.
I'm a little, so first of all, Sabrina, thanks for the memo. But I noticed you asked two questions up front, and Jill, when she framed this issue, mentioned supply chain. Supply chain is one part of it, and you address that, right? You say that these products are probably not any less likely to be able to be acquired. But the other point is inflation, and you don't really address that in the memo, at least that I can tell. And I know, yeah. So, and Mike and Chris sort of said, just assume if inflation is, 7%, 8%, the raw inputs here are no different than they would be for normal construction. So just tack on that inflation for these products, and therefore it's not like we're requiring something specific that would have, a higher inflation number attached to it. So I get that. But I didn't see that addressed here. That was number one.
I didn't address it in the memo because, again, I started by saying that it's an energy conservation code, that it's not really, they're not hard to get items. It's the cost of construction.
Yeah. So let me just finish what I was saying. Thank you, though, Sabrina. My concern, because we're weighing this as a policy matter, is to weigh all of the factors. So it's a policy question, and I get the desire, but it's a policy question. As decision makers, when it comes to policy, we have to think about all these things. So that's number one, and I appreciate Chris's answer on that score. The second thing, though, I'm a little surprised that there isn't at least a plug for what the savings could be, because we've been told it'll be a 10-year payback. That's in the NYSERDA presentation. I think the SAB used those numbers. If we don't have something to plug there, then how do we know it's a 10-year payback, I guess is my question.
Yeah, if I can just address that quick, you go to the resource site and you take a look at the current, that as Chris said, was conducted in 2019 cost benefit analysis, you'll see what those savings are projected to be. The update that Chris has said is coming in a few weeks will also give you that number and account for a good deal of the inflation, while not actually using, as if I heard it correctly, Chris, it's not actually using 2022 energy costs. It's going to use 2021. So it actually won't pay back quite as well as if it were using current prices, but it'll account for a bunch of that in inflation. I also have to add that, so you'll see those numbers. And if you look at the cost benefit analyses right now, you'll see what the savings are. And again, this is in simple payback, estimates. I just was invited to be part of a national discussion of the cost benefit of moving from the 2018 IECC to the 2021 IECC. If you recall, as I said before, our statewide code is based on the 2018. The New York State is pretty much equivalent to the 2021. They looked at this at the national level, and this is in the last few months, and it did account for a lot of the inflation. I was surprised to see that the residential cost values were only about $1,000 per single family home. I believe their model was pretty close to the one that NYSERDA used. And it was the first cost number was higher, but the paybacks were about similar, the savings were about similar, et cetera. If I can get it, I could share that presentation to you as well.
I want to wrap this up in like the next 5 minutes, just so.
I have a quick question just to wrap it up, because I think Chris brings up some great points about inflation. Chris Soy, is your revised numbers, are they going to account for the increase in inflation, particularly the increase? I mean, inflation is hitting everything. The increased heating costs. All of that. Is the intention that your update to your numbers are going to include that?
Yeah, so, we're updating all of the inputs that were used in the current cost effectiveness analysis. And so we will be using an updated inflation rate, an updated, average 30-year mortgage rate, updated material costs, updated fuel pricing, et cetera. We have to, so Christian mentioned policy level analysis. We have to produce our own policy level analysis. So the reason we're using 2021 fuel pricing, for example, is because that's a full year of fuel costs that we can point to, whereas we're only, now in our third month of 2022. And the way that utilities report fuel costs and pricing it's not going to coincide with this analysis. So we are using 2021 values basically across the board, but both the current cost effectiveness analysis and this analysis, as it will be revised, it clearly identifies the methodology that we used, all the inputs and assumptions that were made, and it does identify a simple payback, a 10-year net present value, and a 30-year life cycle cost. Just to give you a ballpark, Christian, since you asked, and I do encourage you, if you're interested, to actually, to take a look at that report, understanding, it was published in 2019, and it is being updated. But for a single-family home in climate zone 4, which is, where you're located, as Mike mentioned, our estimates showed about a $2,400 incremental cost increase, and a $300 annual energy cost savings, and that's what leads to that 8-ish year simple payback. On the multifamily side, it was about a $1,500 incremental cost increase to the cost of construction, and a total annual energy cost savings of about $170 per year, and that produced a simple payback of about 9 years. So again, that is our current analysis. It was published in 2019. It gives you a ballpark, but it is being updated.
May I just say, I'm sorry, am I interrupting you? I thought you were.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make a point about inflation. Everything is going to be affected by inflation, whether we stick to the items required under the current mandates or we go to the items required under the Stretch Energy Code. So from my perspective, what we're looking at really is the incremental value of going to the Stretch Code, because everything is going to go up based on inflation.
Right, of course.
So that I'm not as concerned with inflation, because it's really the incremental value that's going to change. And in terms of the supply chain issues, I think that's been answered by Sabrina's memo. It will be it seems perhaps easier to get these Stretch Code items, especially the R21 insulation, which is stocked on the shelves, whereas the state required insulation is not.
Do you have a question?
No, but I want to make a point, because we're spending a lot of time talking about inflation, and I don't see how these new requirements would be affected by inflation any more than the items that would be installed under current mandates.
All right. That's a good point. I think I'd like to wrap this up. No, Chris, I'd really like to wrap this up.
Mike, no, my last point. Mike said that, I agree. And Chris said that as well. And Vicki, I'm not suggesting that these particular items are subject more to inflation than not. I'm just saying the overall analysis has to be considered in an environment where everything costs more. That's my only point.
Right, but we're trying to decide whether we want to adopt this code. And so,
correct.
if we consider inflation, I don't think that's the variable to consider here. I think it's the incremental cost, which doesn't seem to be as significant as we might have originally thought.
All right, so we are going to have more time to discuss this, because we need a public hearing, everything else. So you guys have 1 minute. Is that okay? Is there anything specific you want to say? I want to try to, we've been talking about this for a while. I want to wrap this up. And certainly, we have access to Sabrina, we have access to the SAB, we have access to Chris and Mike and Tom. So if we have further questions, we can certainly continue to ask those questions. And we're looking forward, Chris, to the new analysis that you're going to send us as well.
A lot of passion about this topic.
Yes.
Terrific. Please don't
Fantastic.
Don't hesitate. And I'm
won't.
leaving now to catch up on an hour and a half of baby pictures.
Okay.
Good night,
Goodbye.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks
Enjoy.
again. It's my honor to work with you folks. I mean it.
I'm going to be really, really quick because I don't want the town board to lose sight of the fact that we have a, 4.5 years ago, the town board, Newcastle Town Board, adopted a resolution for committing to the principles of the Paris Agreement. And so we said, we, as in the town board, said that you would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 26%, at least 26% by 2025. And so I don't want you to lose sight that that was what the town board said. Jennifer, is there an estimate of the impact of adopting the stretch code towards reaching that goal?
Not yet.
Okay. I would have to imagine it's somewhat incremental as far as.
Right, but every little bit helps.
Yes.
I mean, we need to do a lot more than we're doing now.
Right. I think commercial buildings is really the area we'll
Well,
pick up a lot.
and you have 91 townhomes being built at Chapco Crossing, so.
That's a good point.
All right, thank you. All right, so if there's nothing, well, we can table this discussion. We certainly need to, at our next steps, are to figure out how we want to move forward with a public hearing, which we need either way because we're amending legislation.
And there is a resolution in the board's packet for this evening that you would consider to do that.
Yep. Okay, perfect. All right, so thank you, everybody.
You know, I just want to say, just in the interest of being clear, I mean, this is a town board meeting and we need to, to state our opinions. I just want to be clear that based on what I've heard today, I think a lot of the concerns that I had have been answered. And I do agree with you, Jennifer, that, I think that it's very important to honor the climate accord agreements and what the town has been aligned with. So I just want you to know that my concerns have been answered, and I am favorably inclined. And of course, we have a public hearing, so I remain open to hearing more feedback and differing opinions. But I just want you to know that I am favorably inclined towards, making sure that the stretch code can be enacted properly so that it stays on the books this time, unless I hear something that is contrary to what we've heard.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now I'm going to use my supervisor prerogative to move around the agenda a little bit, and you gentlemen have been incredibly patient, so I would like to invite you to come up and talk to the town board.
Thank you so much. This is really fun. I love being here. I just want to start off by saying that. My name is...
Oh, well, we can keep going.
Absolutely. We can keep this presentation going all day. I will sit through it. So much passion in this room for sustainability and environmental topics. And although, I'm going to be completely honest, 90% of it went over my head. I don't think I'm smart enough. But it's really incredible to be in such a passionate, like-minded room. So just to introduce myself before we get going, my name is Gabriel Paley. I go to Horace Greeley High School, and I'm here to tell you the story about the humble pollinator. And I won't take up too much of your time because I think that this is genuinely a win-win initiative, very little work for the town, and I honestly cannot see a problem with it. And I say I'm a huge skeptic of these things, but I love this program. Okay. With that out of the way.
You can talk all night, Gabriel.
Thank you. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. I'm a teenager. Many of you have teenagers at home. Bees are like the teenager, misunderstood. Okay? And let me explain to you why the bee is misunderstood. Okay? The bee lies at the crux of most of the ecosystems around the world. They are the cornerstone for biodiversity, for pollination, etc., right? So by the simple action of pollinating things like trees, plants, flowers, etc., right, they are not only providing shelter for animals around the globe, animals that we can not have without the pollinator, we can also see that all of this pollination manifests itself in staple crops. We're talking coffee. I'm sure a lot of you had coffee today. Avocados, okra, tomatoes. I can list over 90 different crops that are directly influenced by the action of pollinators. But you must be wondering, what exactly is the issue? This sounds fantastic. Well, the problem is that bees are in an unbelievable decline, a decline that isn't really being discussed because of how bees are treated in the public purview, that they sting, that they are mean, that they're horrible. But I can only put it this way. We are seeing one of the greatest extinctions right now with the pollinator, okay? Pollinators are responsible for over a third of the food we are eating. And last year, U.S. beekeepers reported that over 45% of their colonies have been lost. I can't stress this number enough. On the slide, I have some species of bee that have gone extinct this year. In 2022, we are seeing actual species go extinct. That is impressive. And I am so proud to be here today because I believe that this is a community that has always prided itself on being environmentally conscious, on focusing on sustainability. So if I could have the next slide, please. This is where Bee City comes in. And I was looking at this problem because I love this stuff. I love the environment. I love ecology. I love the environmental science portion of it. And I was looking for an answer to this solution in our neighborhood. And I found this program. The program is sponsored by Xerces, which immediately stuck out to me because Xerces is one of like the nonprofits for this. They sponsor a ton of events. They are one of the biggest nonprofits dealing with pollinator protection, and they are a really incredible initiative. So what Bee City is, it's effectively a certification system. Think Climate Smart, right? Where if we do a certain amount of pollinator actions, we get approved as a Bee City, and then we get access to publicity and all sorts of Bee City materials and whatnot. And as of right now, they have over 149 affiliates in 44 states, so it's very far-reaching. But of course, the question is, what work do we have to do? That's always the real question. So if I can have the next slide, please. I have fantastic news for you. It's not that much. It's not that much work. So what I have here are quotes from their website, from the draft resolution, which you should have in front of you, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think we have it.
Yes. So these are the core tenets, right? With the mission to protect native bee species, which, by the way, do not sting, very important distinction, these are the core tenets of Bee City. And we have done an incredible amount of this work already through the SAB and through the Conservation Board and through the Beautification Advisory Board. Increasing the abundance of native plants. We have done it. We have an ordinance for it. Reducing the use of pesticides through the use of an integrated pest management system. Now, what this effectively means is that pesticides are seen as a last-ditch effort as opposed to the first. And where we can prevent the use of them and we can sustain pollinator health. We have one. It's already there. Of course, we can revisit it through the program. We can use this as an opportunity as a jumping off point to look at it again, but we already have it. We already host pollinator awareness events in the form of Earth Day. We have a pollinator subsection. In fact, I'm on that committee for the Conservation Board right now. And we already incorporate pollinator conscious and generally environmentally conscious practices into city policies and plans. Now, here are the two main points, I have them highlighted, that we have not done yet. First of all, we would need to establish a Bee City USA committee. I have more great news. I already went to the Conservation Board and spoke to them, and they love it. So they so generously offered to give us a subcommittee under them. So as of right now, me and Melissa Fable, who is under the Conservation Board, we started filling out this application. And so far, we have Dennis as the liaison, and we have a few members that have already expressed interest as the members of the committee, but this can very easily be changed. In the portal, there's a very easy edit button that allows us to change basically who's there and what's there at any time we want. So with that being said, the question, and I do want to call attention to this map because that's key, right?
Before you move on from the committee,
Sure.
I would definitely advocate for getting students at Greeley involved
Absolutely.
as well to enhance that committee.
Absolutely. I was thinking, and I'll get to this in a future slide, but it can really be interdisciplinary and interdepartmental. So this map is from the Bee City website. Again, has a lot of great information. And basically it shows where the Bee City affiliates are near us. And there are so few in this area. The two closest that I could find are Pace and Vassar, which are both universities, so there are no towns in our nearby area. And second of all, there are simply no other close ones. And you can see our whole area is super sparse on the map. So we would really be the first town, the first community to be a Bee City USA. So if I could have the next slide. So the question is now, how do we go forward? So I started talking about this, and you brought up the amazing point that we should get students involved. And I mean, tonight is a great night to talk about this. You have me, you have Aaron and Zach, who are both members of various boards. You have the entire swim team. The youth is an important element for this stuff. And I think that this is an incredible opportunity to pull people from different places, from the SAB, from Pollinator Pathways, from Parks and Rec, and especially from Horace Greeley, to organize these events and to create something amazing here. Because the honest truth is, Bee City requires towns to publish what they have done, right, for Bee City. It's part of the renewal thing. I'll get into it. But basically, I have looked at a lot of different communities, and every single community has something special. They always find a way to do it their way, right? So some work with local businesses, some go to schools, some create education initiatives. Bee City USA is not a static name. We can do what we want with it as the town of Newcastle. And that's what I really love about the idea of this committee. So now there are a few important things that we have to do before we get certified. And we are literally this close. What you have in front of you, this draft resolution, is probably the last key step before we actually move forward. And we have to pay the application fee, which for our population is $200, right? Because we have a approximately 17,000 person population. So that is what is left on the table. And what is in the draft resolution is exactly what I've been discussing. The only point that I would love to get into more detail with is that somewhere, I believe the section is the city plans, we have to acknowledge our Bee City USA presence in the comprehensive plan. So I would love to open that up to discussion because Melissa and I, we took this template from Bee City, and we were both a little bit confused as to what that means and whether or how to proceed, basically. So that is the point of contention. But I also want to highlight some benefits. So if I can have the next slide. Okay, that was a lot of jargon, but I want to bring it back to what actually matters here. Of course, we're going to have, the things that Xerces provides us. We're going to have native plant lists. We're going to have IPM plans, outreach, education materials. We're going to have all sorts of stuff. They're going to make us logos, training opportunities. These are all designed to allow communities to do what they want with it, right? But the main thing, and I cannot stress this enough, I want to put aside the legalities that are sitting in front of you right now. You have a draft resolution in front of you. You get so much paper. Just step aside, right? This is beautiful. We have to do so little. We have already done so much as a community to get here. And I'm standing in a room where 4.5 years ago, as Jennifer mentioned, we entered the Paris Agreement. We have shown repeatedly that we are into environmental sustainability. We are constantly thinking about how to improve our ecology, our surrounding nature. And by being the first Bee City USA in our area, we can do something beautiful. We can be the model for communities all around us. We can basically establish Newcastle as the place for pollinators and the place for pollinator protection. And I think that that is the true benefit. It's a status, just like climate smart communities, but there's something really incredible about what that status holds. So with that, I want to open it up to any questions. And the only thing I do want to mention is we were really, really hoping to get this in by Earth Day so that we can really highlight this with the pollinator events. And what that will require is that this is signed by our highest elected official, which I assume is you, and that we have paid the application fee, which is $200, and pending renewal, we would pay that every year while we are still a Bee City. And just before I finish, because I forgot to mention, the renewal, we have already done most of the work. They want us to have a native plant list by our first renewal and an integrated pest management plan done. We already have those. We can submit those. And they also want us to basically write some short paragraphs about what we have done as a Bee City, just basically checking up on, what has Chappaqua and what has Newcastle done with this status. So yeah, I want to open up to any questions, anything at all.
So I want to thank you for your passion on this. It's contagious, and you're a fabulous presenter.
Thank you so much.
Do this for a living. And one thing I'm curious about, and I know not just Bee City, but pollinators in general. So did you also look into, I know there's a big push now for being a monarch butterfly city as well, which is also,
I did hear about that, yes.
which is also a big pollinator. So I'm wondering if that's something we would want to do together.
I'm going to be completely honest. I would have to get back to you on that. But I have read a little bit about the monarch butterfly movement, and I think that it would be a fantastic thing to incorporate within this. And as I said, it's so open that there shouldn't be any problem. There are no guidelines restricting us. So if someone wants to work on the monarch butterflies, that's completely within the purview of Bee City.
And I think that, the plantings, it would all work because
Yes.
things you would
Yeah, for
plant
sure.
to bring bees, you would same the butterflies.
Yeah,
could do.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So, but I think this is great and something I could certainly get behind. But does anyone have any questions?
I'm all for it. It's an issue that I've been concerned about as well. I mean, it's been in the news, and it affects so much of the plant life on our planet. So I just want to thank you for coming here and bringing this to our attention in a
Thank
way
you.
that we can make concrete changes and concrete, improvements to the situation.
Thank you so much.
And
Yeah,
so this is a fantastic project.
thank you.
Agreed. I think this is an incredibly exciting initiative, and thank you so much for bringing it to us. It seems like a no-brainer. We have a great opportunity to.
So do we
be at the
actually,
forefront.
oh, sorry. So do we actually?
Gabriel, just one
Yeah.
quick note.
Did you say
Thank you for coming tonight live. Your presentation to the Conservation Board was great. This was like off the charts great.
Thank you so
I
much.
think you should make this a TED Talk. So thank you for that. Totally support it.
So quick
Jill.
question, do you actually have to amend our comprehensive plan? Does
Yes.
it physically have to be part of it?
I believe so, but the only thing that I will say to sort of, make that a bit smoother, there aren't really hard restrictions on time for that. So however long that takes, we can apply literally tomorrow, and they will basically check up on us and say, have you done this point, this point, this point? But I'm personally not familiar with the process for that, but I do believe that according to the resolution that they have provided for us, you do have to physically amend the comprehensive plan.
So, yeah,
if
I'm
I-
wondering because our comprehensive plan talks about environment and so I'm wondering if we don't need to amend that, but somehow this resolution can be, because our comprehensive plan is really think of it as like a global blueprint. And then we take those ideals and then we delve down into them and we look at zoning, we look at, different things that we can do in furtherance of the goals that are in the comprehensive plan. So I'm wondering if we can just get a little more information because we may be able to say in furtherance of the stated goals in the comprehensive plan, we are now going to become a Bee City and do X, Y, and Z.
So
I'm wondering if the resolution kind of gets us there.
I completely
If I
agree.
may, 2 seconds, okay? I think that it is possible to amend the comprehensive plan and include specific language as an action because it does already fall under a policy that is within our comprehensive plan. We have a very different comprehensive plan than I think Bee City is used to looking at. So I think we could include it as an action item and outright name it. And I think that's what they're looking for.
But isn't the
But
question
I'd have
whether
to
we
look closer into it, and I'm happy to work on this.
Yeah, and we can all work with you and figure out how to accomplish that.
But is your question that that you want to get this done now
Yes.
for Earth Day? So there's no way to amend the comprehensive plan
No,
now?
absolutely not.
We don't need to though.
But
We
you
don't need
wouldn't
to.
need to.
You
Okay.
would not need to. And
Oh,
the one
okay.
thing I will say is that I have been in contact with some of the people there. There was a bit of language in the draft resolution that Melissa and I were not only confused on, but just flat out did not understand within the context of Chappaqua. And I emailed within a day. I got a response. Totally fine at it. go ahead. And I have a feeling that this is a sort of attitude that we can see throughout the entire organization, that they're willing to adjust to each community, because we're not dealing with thousands of affiliates, we're dealing with 100 something. So they can really take a close look at each one. And in terms of what you were saying, Victoria, I do believe that there is no timeline. We could get this done now and figure out the details of how to get this passed within the comprehensive plan, or as an action, as Sabrina was saying, within a reasonable amount of time.
Right, I guess what I was getting at is if it's time sensitive, we could have a clause in the resolution now stating the intention to amend the comprehensive plan.
I
But
think we
don't know
need
if
to
we're
understand
getting-
how it needs to be effectuated. I wouldn't feel
Right.
comfortable doing that right now.
As a general comment, okay. Yeah, I can
But
understand that.
we can say that that's something we're going to look toward how to do that. It does say that there's, we're going to establish a policy in our plan. So this is it's still a policy.
Yes.
And we'll can figure out how to effectuate. And to Sabrina's point, there aren't that many towns who have comprehensive plans that look like ours. So I think that as we move this along, we can probably speak to them and educate them as well as to how this works.
My question would be, do you believe that it would still be possible for you as town supervisor to sign off on this for time being so that we can push the application through? Or do you think that this requires more time to think about it?
So I think in terms of the concept, I think we're good. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't allow beekeeping right now
Right.
in our code.
Yes.
Not a requirement.
You can have chickens, but right now you cannot have bees. So, I just want to make sure that we're effectuating everything correctly, but certainly in terms of adopting, approving the town as a bee city, I think we can do that.
But that's not required, right, Gabriel?
Sorry?
That's not required, right?
Which part, the beekeeping?
They allow beekeeping.
No, not at all. The general idea is that we're maintaining the global level of pollinator health. So if we can naturally attract pollinators through native plants and reduce use of pesticides, that's completely fine.
Yep.
The other thing worth mentioning is I have looked at a little bit of town policies regarding bees. A lot of these actions that Bee City proposes are mostly focused around native bee species. Those are the fat, cute bees that do not bite and that everyone loves. So there won't be a problem in terms of, community fright and the sort of thing that drove the ban against beekeeping in the first place. So,
yeah, everyone likes bees.
Everyone likes bees.
We don't like yellow jackets. But we like
Exactly.
We like bees. We like bumblebees.
I thought we had some beekeepers in town.
If I may, if the town board is inclined to pass a resolution, you can pass a resolution that talks about incorporating this into the comprehensive plan. And just, say that we will look to do that.
And if I may, I don't want the board to be overly concerned about the need to do that. There's flexibility there. It's not akin to like adopting or amending legislation. A comprehensive plan doesn't necessarily even need to be a single document.
Right.
I'll work with Sabrina and we'll make it happen.
That's what I'm thinking. If we adopt, this resolution may even be enough to say it's part of our goals in the comprehensive plan. We can figure out how to do that.
And then in terms of the payment, the $200, where do you think that would be sourced? And do you think we can get our hands on it before Earth Day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We can.
Okay. Wonderful. So,
your taxes are going to go up, but
absolutely. Exactly 5 cents higher. Let's divide 200 by 17,000.
Your math is failing you.
Oh, absolutely.
But can we calculate the savings?
So, what do you think the next steps would be? Who should I reach out to? Is there an email chain with?
I think do it within, I think the board would like to, understand what's going on, but I think that Chris, as the liaison at the Conservation Board is a good one to make sure you're keeping in contact with. But certainly, we're gonna look at this for tonight and, let us. I think we'd like you to email the whole town board to keep us apprised of all of this.
And then you would email me for the signed copy?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
We can do that. And if you could look into the butterflies too.
Absolutely.
While you're doing all
I will
this.
do that.
All right, exactly.
So, we can put this on for the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And what we'll have is a companion resolution authorizing the payment of the $200 fee that will come out of the boards and commissions line. And that will authorize the comptroller's office to issue the check.
Perfect.
What's the date
Earth
for
Day is what, the 20th?
22nd.
22nd?
Yes.
So there's plenty of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And then I know you just said the word check. I believe that the payment has to be online, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll definitely look into that.
We'll figure it out.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, really.
All right.
was great,
Thank
Gabriel.
you
Thank
so
you.
much. You
Thank
did a
you.
great
Thank you so
job.
Good job.
Yay. All right.
Next MC is going to be, that's for sure.
Okay, so then moving back, thank you so much.
Have an amazing night.
You too. And good job.
Thank you.
All right. Moving back, just really quickly to go back to the NYSERDA. I didn't want to cut you off. I just felt terrible that they were sitting
Oh,
there
that's
for
okay.
so long.
I did too. I did. Yeah, I did too.
But we can certainly open that up if anyone else has questions or if you guys want to talk longer.
I'll make a few comments.
Okay.
Obviously, this has been discussed a lot, but it is an energy conservation code. It's not really a building code. So they've gone over all of the benefits of it, which are really they're not heavy lifts individually. There's it's mostly things that are readily available. But one of the things to consider also is that the built environment in Newcastle, as of 2005, we don't have more recent numbers, it creates 53.9% of the greenhouse gases, okay? So anything we can do to mitigate some of those greenhouse gases is to our benefit. Now, Jennifer started to allude to it, but with the 91 units at Chappaquiddick Crossing, and then you had a presentation last week about Millwood Supply, which could be up to 50 units, we're talking about a significant number of units that we could reduce their carbon footprint. And so I think it would be ideal if we could get it on board this year, so that those buildings would have to conform to the new requirements. I'm just going to say something about inflation. We have no idea what's going to happen with inflation. We don't have a crystal ball. We really can't tell. And it could be that this does end up costing homeowners a little bit more in the long run. But if you do look at the numbers, $53, whatever it might be, it could be, Mike DeWine said that the numbers we used were a little high, so it would probably be less than that. But they're not onerous, okay? But the other thing that could happen, obviously, is that inflation does continue, and those people who locked in the prices of those materials right now for those energy savings could, in the long run, really be benefited by it. So but again, we don't know what's going to happen, okay? And then the only other thing I would say is, so for people who are in the environmental movement or community, okay, one of the things we have with other towns are really a good-natured, kind of competition as far as who's doing better, who's doing what, okay? And one of the things that I'm not as concerned about the CSC aspect of this and attaining silver, because we can do that at any point in time and we can apply up until July this year, or we could always do it next year. However, the CEC, the New York stretch, it's 1,200 points, which it's like the largest amount of points that you can get for any one task. We're at 3,900 right now. Okay, the highest one, 7,100, is Hastings. Bedford's at 60-something hundred. But then the next layer down is like the 5,000s, and we're not there. And this would bring us into that kind of second tier of communities within the CSC program. And I think that if you can decide that that all of the issues with inflation, et cetera, if we can get it done so that we could get it filed by June 30th, so that we could get those points, I think that would be a real bonus, and it would be, kind of uplifting for those people who are involved in environmental actions. So.
I think absolutely we could have a resolution on this issue by June 30th. I mean, we're gonna.
So that we can get it approved by June 30th.
Because we're gonna schedule a public, we need to schedule a public hearing, so that'll be in early April.
Okay.
So I think that's not gonna be a problem.
Okay.
And also, I think it's important to note that there's nothing that we've done to hold this up. as of now, because we have to, redo the code. For some reason, the code council and the agencies involved didn't coordinate to present the correct model language. So we have to go through the steps that were done initially. So there's nothing that anyone can do about the timeline thus far.
Yeah.
So,
Very good.
you know.
Yeah. All right. That's all I have to
Okay.
say. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so believe it or not, we actually have one more presentation tonight.
Oh, good.
Sustainable Westchester's here. Thank you for not for sticking around with us. We appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Oh no, this was great. I'm still pretty new to New York State, so New York Stretch Code is something obviously Sustainable Westchester is very interested and involved in, but I'm not been as up to date or familiar yet as I'd like to be. So, and then the B, you have impressive high school students there. I'll say that much. That's pretty amazing. They're more achieved than me athletically than I was in high school, and that speaker might be a better speaker than I am now too, but he's only in high school, so very impressive.
He's better than all of us, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, my name is Nick Tedrow. I am the program manager for Westchester Power. I joined Sustainable Westchester in September of this year and moved here from California. So this is all a new experience for me. So thank you for having me. It's been a great start to my time here in Westchester County. I'll get right into it now that I've done that. And I'm assuming you can see my presentation here. Yep. So talking about the Westchester Power Program, just a brief overview for anyone who might not be familiar. Sustainable Westchester is a nonprofit consortium of the municipalities in Westchester County, including Westchester County itself. And we have a myriad of different programs and initiatives that we administer through our organization that you can see a snapshot here, all coalescing and helping work towards a sustainable and healthy communities of the future. So speaking specifically about Westchester Power and why I'm here, just a snapshot with this month, Yonkers just launched their aggregation and participation in Westchester Power. So with them coming on, we have now 29 municipalities in the county and roughly 45,000 residential and small business accounts as a part of the aggregation. So the basics in terms of electricity generation and delivery, you all seem very in the know that are participating in this meeting. So your energy has to get generated somewhere, whether that be a coal plant or in our case here, as represented through our 100% renewable power supply product, hydropower. And then it all gets deposited into the electricity grid, which is, in a large part managed by the utility, Con Edison in your case, who delivers the energy, maintains the infrastructure, and bills you as a customer, where you have the choice about where your energy is originally sourced from and generated. So this is just review. It's come up a lot recently, so we're covering it again. The opt-out format. This is a way to ensure that we have maximal participation and are able to leverage our buying clout as a large community when we go out and secure electricity supply contracts. Functionally, it operates the same way as your utility, where you sign up with Con Edison and you're automatically just getting their electricity supply without any thought or option as a part of it. Whereas you all have enabled Westchester Power to be the default community electricity supply option. Prioritizing, as all have, renewable energy. Speaking of the CEC points, you've done the biggest thing already, so congratulations on that. And so this is an effective program for making renewable energy accessible to the communities. In terms of impact so far on that, in that respect, countywide, roughly 1.1 metric tons of CO2 mitigated. And you can see here our correlating EPA estimate impact numbers there for a little more tangible effect. Roughly for Newcastle, 18,800 cars taken off the road per year, or 1.4 million tree seedlings planted and grown for 10 years. So with the current contracts, June 30th is the end of the rates we have now. So for this contract, 100% renewable electricity, 7.41 cents per kilowatt hour, and the standard supply 6.75 cents per kilowatt hour. again, you all are pretty aware of things here, but the Con Ed rate is variable, as we noticed in our bills in January with a huge spike across the board on the charges there. And so, we don't guarantee savings to the program or give any financial assurances other than we have our fixed rate, and that won't change throughout the course of the contract term. And the Con Ed supply is not renewable, so comparing it to our renewable price or product is not apples to apples. And then just program generals again, opt out. Anyone can opt out, opt in anytime, switch between supplies. There's no fees, cancellations, or anything like that. And again, our fixed rate is a cost assurance measure, and there's a cap for what your cost will be on the electricity supply in terms of.
Nick, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Just with respect to this slide. So I've had a lot of residents ask me recently that, they're participating in Westchester Power, they didn't opt out. And given that we know what the cap is, and they had huge increases in their Con Ed bills. So what would cause their Con Ed bills to go up significantly when we know what our power supply costs are?
Yeah, so the electricity supply portion is just one portion of your bill. It's broken up between supply and delivery for electricity and gas. So you have potentially several different components to your bill. And so, with the rates going up on the delivery side, that's a reflection of what the cost to operate, maintain the infrastructure, and are all, sort of derived from what Con Edison is reflecting as their cost and passing down to consumers. But then also gas, on the gas side of it, that also went up hugely, and it's been talked about a lot in this board meeting already about inflation, and we can talk about the energy market being equally affected by that in terms of other commodities, as well as other commodities in the world right now. So gas, oil, everything has sharply driven up recently with all of it was already on an upward trajectory since the summer, and now with all of the geopolitical implications, of sanctions on Russia and things like that, that's having huge ripple effects on the price of gas, which is also the primary electricity fuel as well. So gas price not only affects just the gas side of things, but it does affect electricity and swings where that goes as well. So
Nick, just 1 second though. This is Vivek Agastya from the Sustainability Advisory Board. Lisa, I think your question was related to people that are in Westchester Power with the locked-in prices, or was
yes,
it?
Yes.
So they're saying their electricity supply costs went up?
Yeah, their supply costs should not have gone up. So if it has, there's an error in their bill, we at the Sustainability Advisory Board are happy to help out and talk to residents about it.
Yeah, I'll ask them that. I think most people don't understand their Con Ed bill. They're quite confusing. So, I just know everyone's bills have gone up. I'll confirm that it was not their supply. But
yeah, everyone's bills did go up. So, whether you're in our program or not, everyone experienced higher rate charges for gas and delivery charges in this winter period. And maybe they used more energy. This is my first winter in the Northeast, but I hear it was a colder winter than usual. So that could be a part of it too, at the individual level. So yeah, maybe people just, you can reach, send them our way too if they have questions, of course, about their bills and as well.
Okay.
So, yeah. Oh, I'm presenting here. I'll keep clipping. So just a snapshot of rates over the contract term and our horizontal bars there, the two rates we offer. The red is the renewable, yellow standard. So over the course of time, you can see there's ebbs and flows to this with the Con Ed rate and peaks and valleys of where we're, better or worse. And then you see that big scary vertical line there is the January charges for electricity supply from Con Edison that we were just referencing. So in terms of the current contract and how the rates have performed, these are estimates and estimate comparisons of the averages for Con Edison against your average consumption account across residential and small commercial. You can see here the three different columns: condensation, our renewable product, and the standard, and the rough cost over the term for each of those folks. So with January obviously being a huge month, that's not only insulated folks in our program a little bit from that huge spike in their bill on that one portion of their bill, but also reflects a little bit of performance savings for them across the term as well. So talking about what comes next, we're approaching the end here of June. Somehow it feels like we're getting close to June already, and the end of this current contract. So talking now about what we have planned and some hopefully really impactful measures and steps we're trying to take in our evolution here with the program to increase our effect on the environment and the economic value of the program for residents. So, that's centered around trying to figure out or, strategize ways to increase our supplier pool. So we have increased competition, and which will be especially important if things continue on the track they are in the world right now, to really have as much competition as possible for our aggregation contracts. And, in turn, that'll hopefully build capacity with these new enhancements we're working on for longer term contracts, allow us to be, adopt more flexible supply formats and maybe different, product offerings in the, down the line that are, dynamic rates or something through the program for electricity and customers. And then, in turn, long-term price stability, and hopefully, also down the line, the ability to invest in renewable construction locally here and have that direct clean energy supply at the local level and being plugged into that. So how we're getting there, this initial next step. So on the left or on the right here is sort of the 1.0 model, the way that we go out and solicit for electricity contracts is we run an auction, a reverse auction, where ESCOs, who are the only ones in New York State that have the authority to actually supply retail customers, come and participate in a live auction against each other and bid on our aggregation in that live time. And then we award our contract to whoever, basically the lowest bid. So that's a limiting factor in and of itself, because not all electricity producers in the state are ESCOs for one reason or another. Primarily, it doesn't fit their business model for whatever reason. So, and then compound that with where we're at in the world right now. We have a pretty big aggregation load, so we need to make sure we're relying on a company who has the capacity to support our load. And now that even becomes more constrained as inflation and cost in the electricity market squeeze everybody, including the suppliers. So needing to find ways to diversify the way we bring competition and suppliers into the pool. What we have in mind is utilizing a firm that we're now contracting a vendor for our own services internally for CRM, who can also act and provide us what we call a sleeving service. So, we would utilize them for the sort of ESCO face of a wholesale energy product. So they can, perform all the functions that are required and have the authority to act as an ESCO, which would allow us potentially to, contract directly with wholesale electricity suppliers rather than having to rely just on retail ready companies to provide our service. So what that means is we would, on the day of the auction and in this next auction we plan to run, still do our traditional full retail ESCO auction and have the folks who want to participate in that come and run that. But then also knowing that we have this sleeving firm available to us with known fixed costs for the retail pieces that go into making a full ESCO offering, run a wholesale auction and have energy suppliers who are just wholesale generators come and bid for that energy block itself. And then we can, analyze those results from the traditional retail auction against our wholesale plus sleeving cost option and compare and select the best offer from that. And theoretically, we're, increasing the competition across the board and perhaps tapping into some cost savings by directly going into the wholesale market and soliciting bids from there. So, and that's not a guarantee, but it is, a theory. And if nothing else, we are, expanding our understanding of the wholesale energy market and the inner workings of that, and becoming, more adept and able to identify how we evolve, from that point. So right now, we are recommending and hoping to get the support of all of the Con Edison municipalities to go forward on June 30th with a contract extension. So this will give us the additional time to organize for this enhanced auction structure that we want to run, and make sure we have everything tight around that when we get through the extension period, to really then launch into a long-term contract, similar as we've done to this point. So that'll be the modified RFP and sleeving arrangement. And then, another thing, obviously a big thing here is we're really trying to get out of or away, hopefully, from this uncertainty and high-risk market. So, the price in the market is really volatile right now, and is a scary time. So, we think that it's a high risk maybe to be locking into a long-term contract at this point in time, if there's a lot of baked in pricing around that uncertainty and risk from suppliers, where we could get stuck maybe with a bad price now if we were to do a long-term contract and things calm down. Hopefully they do for so many reasons, but so we think that having a short-term extension maybe gets us past a little bit of that, hopefully, and sets us up for some better pricing in a better energy market environment. So right now, what we've been seeing through our indicatives and forecasting that through our partners that we rely on, as I'm not exactly a market expert yet, 5 months, maybe up to 6, looks like the best period right now for an extension, and then to launch into a new long-term contract, hopefully. So anyway, this is all also to note that I'm sure this isn't going to surprise anybody, an extension won't be at the price that we currently have for the program. They'll be much more reflective of market prices now versus what the current contract is, which is far below the market rate as being quoted. So in terms of immediate next steps, the contract extension. So Dan, the program director, has sent out correspondence, and I sent out an invite to chief electives and admins for a meeting on March 30th. We don't have that next price not to exceed in hand yet. Still going through the negotiation process with the current supplier for an extension price. And so when we have that, obviously that'll be shared around, and the 3:30 meeting will be hopefully to discuss any questions, concerns about pricing, program extension, anything like that. But hopefully we're able to get the support of all the boards and move forward with whatever that new price not to exceed is, and execute MOUs to go forward and execute this extension sometime in mid-April. And then we would have to follow the same compliance steps we would do for a new contract, since there is a price change. So do a new mailing to residents, or not a new mailing, but an update mailing, price change mailing, letting everybody know about the price change, and go through an opt-out period, and then be in a position to roll into July 1st with the new pricing, whatever that looks like. And then going forward with the new contract, that same procedural steps we're doing right now, we'll restart, and we'll look to, this is like the 5-month track here, be ready to rock with a new long-term contract December 1st. So that is the short version of all. I'm sure there's a lot of questions if I were to guess from how engaging the other conversations were. So, and I guess if anyone from the SAB wants to comment on that.
Would it be helpful, Chris, especially for you, because I know Lisa's been here in the past with these extensions, and and I managed to catch up with Victoria and Tara separately. Would it be helpful for you to hear a little bit of the Sustainability Advisory Board's perspective on this before you go into Q&A?
Sorry, I'm on mute. Sure, Vivek. Or I mean, frankly, I've done some diligence on the side, and certainly we can catch up separately so that we don't. It's already 9:20. We can kind of do that offline, which I'd love to do.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for either Nick or Vivek?
I do have a question about the permanent contract that we'd enter into in 5 to 6 months. So I understand that the contract extension would have higher rates, of course, but in anticipation of your increasing the supply end of things and getting a broader ESCO, would we anticipate that the new contract would have lower rates than the contract extension?
Wow, that's quite a bit of crystal balling. A lot of that, as has been mentioned before and probably earlier in other discussions, it's going to matter on what happens in the world. There's no way to know what's going to happen. So, ideally things start to improve for the better. I mean,
Well, I guess to have a reasonable, understanding of the question, assuming all else remains the same, that the ESCO simply becomes expanded, would that reduce the rate?
I mean, I would hope so, with measures of, expanded competition the next time around, maybe I would imagine we're going to be in a different place, hopefully, by the time we get to the summer. I don't think gas prices can continue to be as volatile as they've been for that long. I don't know. I'm really speculating here as a non-market expert person, but it looks like Vivek's itchy to say something. I'll let him go.
Is it fair to say that is the goal?
That is, of course, the goal.
That's what I assumed the goal would be. So I anticipated the answer to be yes, with all else remaining equal, which is, of course, unrealistic, but just for the sake of this hypothetical question.
Sure, yeah. I think we will certainly be able, if nothing else changes, we'll certainly be able to get a better price, by doing an expanded auction model with more participants versus just trying to negotiate a contract extension right at the end of this one. The pricing would certainly, all things being equal, sense be more favorable, I'd say, in that later.
Right.
If I can put some perspective.
Supply demand economics, right? So you've got more bidders potentially in the bid process. With the new booster, you should have the ability to go down that curve.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a big aggregation. It's an attractive one for suppliers. There will be interest in that for sure.
Great,
and
thank
it'll
you.
be, sorry.
Okay, so as far as the 5-month extension,
Can you just talk into the mic?
As far as the 5-month extension, I think you should expect drastically higher rates. Okay, they negotiated for Yonkers back in the fall, and the rates were about 20% higher than what we're paying now. Okay, in our current contract. So I think that time period, it's definitely going to be higher. It's hard to determine. So what they're saying they want to do, I don't know if you understood this or not, is they want to try and buy energy on the wholesale market and act as their own ESCO. Okay, because New York State law only allows ESCOs or utilities to sell energy to residents. Okay, so it's to be determined whether they're going to be able to get such a better price that it will go down. But the thing that works against you is it's going to be a longer term contract, okay? And in the energy markets, in any futures markets, there's something called contango, and what contango means that as you go out in time because of volatility and risk, the price goes up. So the longer you have on that contract, the higher the average price is likely to be. Okay, so that's kind of how it would work. So we don't know what they're going to save buying at wholesale.
A lot of variables.
There are a lot of variables, yes.
And just one quick question, and I might have missed the date. So for the contract extension, when our rates are going to change, are you doing an auction for that, for the short term? For the extension
no,
period?
No, we're not doing an auction for that. No, we're
So-
trying to work through our current supplier to extend
To
their
just
service.
negotiate the best rate for the next 5-ish months?
Yeah, we're thinking, we are considering other options outside of that, obviously, because it's not good to have all your eggs in one basket. That is the primary, avenue we are looking towards for this.
And when would you have that number?
Imminently. We're asking, if I go back to my timeline, for buy-in on the price not to exceed and, execution of an MOU early, the end of this month, very early next month from you also.
Right.
I would expect sometime within a week we're going to be settling at a point.
I think communications.
Yeah, and in terms of the gentleman's comments about the market, we do consider all of that as well with our, we have a vendor who runs our auction process and is much more of an expert on the market and the futures and settlements and stuff than we are. So we are, considering that along with all of this when we do the auctions, when we're considering, the extension timelines and all of that as,
Right.
important factors.
Just to be clear, also the 5-month extension. So they're going to give you a price, and you're going to want to sign a memorandum of understanding. And if Constellation, in this case, it's only one vendor. If they don't meet that price, you're not going to execute that agreement. And what'll happen, and I don't think this is going to happen because I think they're going to negotiate back and forth enough that the price will fall within the cap that is set. But otherwise, everyone would fall back into Con Ed supply, or they could choose some other ESCO.
Until we have a new contract.
Right.
Yeah. Just like with, if we were doing a new long-term contract, you would sign that price not to exceed MOU, and we would be going out and securing that price. And with the understanding, we get to the target, everyone's on board that signed the MOU, and we go forward. So, yeah.
So I think we're seeing residents express a lot of shock at current utility bills, and that's only going to get worse. So I think we're just going to have to be really focused on how we communicate this.
Absolutely.
And letting people know they still have choice and exactly what's transpiring, so they're prepared,
I think
that's an important. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
Sorry, Nick. I was just going to say along those lines, just from the board's perspective, and with Vivek on, it might be a useful service to figure out a way to do some sort of community outreach. I know the SAB obviously has information on its website and on the town board website or the town board Facebook page, but something that's a little more, comprehensive and, almost like a tutorial would be helful.
So,
This question
Chris,
does come up quite a lot.
in the past, we've done an outreach, like I think 5 different methodologies. There is a Sustainable Westchester sends out a letter on its own. In the past, we've sent one out along with usually these have happened in December, so we've sent them out with the refuse mailer in December. In addition to that, we've got our website, the town weekly email. That bulletin has a blurb as well, and then Facebook. Those are the 5 sources we use. I think we've also sent a NYSERDA alert in the past. So we've kind of tried to over message in the past, but you're still going to have complaints because not everyone is going to be reached. And we've provided that service to the town board as well as being the sounding board for people to approach for that and trying to address questions. I will say that there's 2 sources of complaints we typically hear. One is choice, and that's actually a false complaint because this is the only way you have every choice in the world. And now some people are upset at being opted into a 100% renewable tariff rate when there is a brown tariff option available. But then the second most, actually that's the second most complaint we get. The biggest complaints we get are actually volatility in price. The people are shocked at a price increase happening between 1 month and the next, and then they're okay with it being flat. And the argument that's actually one of the biggest arguments for Westchester Power and the CCA is because that price is going to be flat, whereas with Con Edison you're going to see huge spikes. I mean, there was a chart that Nick shared there, and you could see I think January or February had like this massive spike up there. That is what upsets people most when they've got a $50 bill one month and they've got a $150 bill the next month.
That one infographic.
And you're, touching on something that's really important, and particularly in this, instance we're in now, where we're going out and talking about an extension, and it's going to represent, a significant jump from where the pricing was before, and figuring out how outreach and messaging is best delivered to, help tell a story, put it into context by, talking about Con Edison rates and in a digestible way that people won't, feel, I don't know how you describe the feeling that would come from that, but like shock, I guess, and a little bit of anger, like, why is this all of a sudden going up? This was, one thing today.
We've been already hearing complaints before the prices have gone up. So you can just imagine what we're going to hear.
Yeah. And we had quite a response from our Yonkers launch, and so we had a top 5 of complaints rather than a top 2. But I think, whatever support you all can offer and ideas, we're definitely going to be planning on formulating some, hopefully digestible communication around, the context of what's going on right now, and why prices are where they're at, and why our prices are going to be, significantly increasing in terms of this extension. And, it's a tough job, but
we may want to consider having a community forum, as it gets closer to the, December, to have you in person, hopefully, explain this so that residents can choose to show up and really discuss this and understand what, where the pricing's coming from, but also what their options are.
I think that we need to do something.
Yeah, they do mail
before that, because this is something that hasn't happened before. There's been the 2-year or 18-month renewal periods for the Westchester Power, but we're now talking about this 5-month interim period, and then we're talking about going to a different kind of structure. I think that a webinar or an on-demand video is maybe the way to get this out to the residents, because I don't think you can adequately address it in writing.
So maybe a webinar for the extension, but then once we have the full auction for the next contract term, I think that's when it would be.
Right. It could address that's
nice
the direction that's going to go in at the end.
Yep.
Yeah. So minimally, we put on the mailing that Vivek referenced some very general snapshot of cost comparison between us and some Con Ed context in there, and then we do have 2 advertised webinar schedules on there that to drive people to join and learn, but we'll certainly look to expand that given the special circumstances referenced.
Yeah, I also have to tell you that, Vivek, I'm sorry to do this to you, but you have been a fabulous, fabulous resource. Vivek has given his time and his energy and his patience to our residents so graciously, and has been so generous with his time. And if he were willing to continue, I think that these, webinars, along with giving the name of a person who will take a look at your bill and actually explain it to you, is tremendously helpful. And I really think it's really fostered a tremendous amount of goodwill in our community, because there's someone literally who has no agenda, is not vested in this, just a volunteer who takes and goes through it. And I've heard nothing but satisfaction and rave reviews about it. So I don't know if maybe you want to, gather up a couple more friends to help you out with this, but he's been fabulous. If the SAB
thank you so much. I didn't know you had done all that, so we're very grateful. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
Happy to continue to help.
Yeah. In my limited experience at Sustainable Westchester, the group, your group here, has been more involved than most any other group, community group, that is, volunteer group. So very impressive. So thank you, Vivek, and others here. I think maybe somebody else is on the call, but.
Right.
And I think we actually have some developed how to read your bill resources already, maybe, or it's very close to being redeveloped, because we've been working on that, particularly after our Yonkers launch, and getting a lot of sense about people not really understanding their bill at large. So we already had it before, but we're revamping it now. So if that's, I'll have to check with our marketing outreach folks and see where that's at. But if that might be ready to go, and just could just toss to you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from anyone? on the board, or? All
I
right.
had just one more pitch thing I forgot to do here at the end, if you allow me. So we are getting ready to launch opt-out community solar credits here soon, hopefully. So it's a program that'll be, attached to through Westchester Power, and it'll provide guaranteed savings to participating households and small businesses. So the initial offering is going to prioritize low to moderate income households. So enrolling folks who are in existing utility low-income assistance programs, assistance program participants. So, if this is something you were keen on or looking to get, proactive about, you have to amend your local CCA enabling law to add the solar credit to the supply offering. So there's a template developed, I think, now. So it's going to get emailed out if it hasn't. But if you have questions, talk to our solar folks, Leo here, whose contact is there, and they could definitely get you the resources.
I know it goes without saying, but I just want to point out, of course, the Sustainability Advisory Board is supportive and recommends approving what Sustainable Westchester and Westchester Power is recommending here.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate it.
All night for the SAB.
Okay.
You guys are amazing.
All right, so we've sort of hopped around between work session and town board issues, so
Right,
let's
so,
get back to the work session.
Yeah, let's see if we can go back here. You're going to notice on the initial work session agenda that we had asked whether we had put down topics for the local laws for the 10% AFFH requirement to amend Chapter 9 of the Town Code regarding a membership and powers of the Board of Ethics, that was expanding it, and also to create Chapter 6 to establish an alternate member for the Planning Board. If the board remembers, we had closed the public hearings but held them open for comment. And Christina, have there been any comments that have come in?
No.
Okay, except for the Planning Board's memo. That's it. So I think we can take and just kick that over to the town board, actual hearing for the resolutions. Let me just quickly go over the administrative items with you and just see if there's any issues at all. There's payment of claims. There's authorization to approve Mount Kisco water rents as tax liens. So there is a section of Newcastle that is provided water by Mount Kisco. And the only way that they can take and collect on delinquent water rents is if we put them on our tax bills. And this is a courtesy that we have extended to Mount Kisco every year. We do it again this year. The next is authorization to rent the conference rooms at the Chat Pack Evening Out. Would like to extend it to April, same terms and conditions. That would be $1,500. There's been a banner request for Evening Out to advertise the $1 Million Quartet coming in April. There's a resolution granting New York State DOT authority to support and protect a water main in connection with the work performed under a state contract. There is a culvert that is being replaced on 120 right by KIP. We have a water main that runs right by there, and this requires New York State DOT to actually take and support it, make sure that there's no damage to our water main while they're taking and replacing the culvert. We have gone out to bid for T-shirts for recreation for summer camp. We've gotten an award of a bid. And we will be replacing our Luke machines, our 2 parking machines down at the train station. But in order to discard them, we have to declare them surplus. So this is a request to declare them surplus so that, in fact, when we get the new machines, the new machine, singular, in, we will be able to remove them and discard them. If there's a way we can sell them for parts, we will, but I don't know what it's going to be used for. And that concludes the work session. Are there any questions?
Actually, one other thing on the work session. Do we need to talk about mulch?
So we've had a request from the library for 3.5 yards of mulch. This is something that we have traditionally given to the library. Ed, do we need a resolution to be able to provide them with this for free?
A resolution would be, yeah.
Okay, all right, so.
And what about for DOT?
Yeah, and so, just sort of funny, we understand through the grapevine, because we haven't heard directly yet, that the parking area off the Sawmill Parkway by Reader's Digest Road and it's actually Roaring Brook Road. It's on the far side of the intersection.
That sort of island that's right there.
Yeah.
not really
I
an
guess
island, but
it
it's-
is the north.
Where the police park
Yes,
all the
it's,
time.
my east and my west is completely, I can never get it right. I'm thinking it's
on the
north,
Roaring Brook,
west, that side.
The old Roaring Brook Road side, like
Yes, that side. I'm such a.
Southbound
yeah.
side, yes.
Anyway, evidently, they're going to, New York State DOT has approved the installation of a pollinator garden there.
which folds in quite nicely to
With our
the bee
City and
discussion we
monarch
had
butterflies.
today.
So there you go.
It just seems like an odd place where there's such
Evidently, they
traffic.
so they were approached. DOT was approached by someone, a resident, from what I understand, who asked them, "Can they do this?" And DOT was like, "Fine," which.
It wouldn't hurt. I'm just
Right.
surprised that with the
I
cars
have to tell you,
passing by
Vicky,
so quickly
as
that you
surprised
would have
to
butterflies.
us as well. We had no idea. They are leaving a couple of spots there so that people
Great.
can pull over and park safely. The help truck often parks there, so that's a good thing. They're actually looking for 9 cubic yards. of
Which
mulch,
is, what is it, $10 a cubic yard?
if you're at resident rates, right?
So I guess we have to decide if we're going to charge them for it or not, right?
Right.
They want to trade it for some salt?
That's funny. Yeah. The answer was no. They did not want to trade it for something.
Yes. Were they planning to pay us for that, or did they just ask us to provide them with mulch?
I think they just asked us to provide them with mulch. They also asked us for a piece of equipment we didn't have. They're going out and they're renting it. So.
Is there what are the legal issues here?
Hearing about it for the first time.
Sorry.
That's
We
okay, I
were
don't
sort of
mean to-
hoping that we would get like detail right from the horse's mouth, and we haven't. We have still heard about this third hand through Chris Burdick's office, who mentioned it to me in passing, and I said I didn't know anything about it. And they had a meeting with DOT, and I still don't really know anything about it.
So do we not need to make a decision now? Can we just hold off till we get more information, or do we need that decision?
That you would want a resolution either way, so is
Right.
that something we can do next week?
Well, we're not meeting next week. We're meeting on the 5th.
The 5th, I'm sorry, yeah.
I mean, mulch is the
Would be the last
thing that's going in,
think
so
it's fine. We'll address it, and hopefully by then
if
somebody will
if
actually
we
reach
all
out
of a
to us.
sudden see plantings in there, we can have an emergency meeting. Okay, all right, so just to keep everyone in the loop.
Yeah. Mulch for the 5th. Great. Okay.
All right, so can I entertain a motion to adjourn the work session, open the town board meeting?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, everybody, welcome, finally, to the 9:40 p.m. Town Board meeting of March 22nd. Any announcements?
I just want to mention that we don't have a meeting next week because it's the 5th Tuesday of the month, so traditionally that has not been a meeting date. And we also don't have a meeting on April 12th because that's school vacation. So if you're looking for us, we won't be here, so I need to thank. And I did want to mention that the new fence along Washington Avenue has been installed. If you happen to be driving or you're in the back with the skate park, remember that old dilapidated fence? It's been removed. A brand new stockade fence has been installed. And that our Parks Department continues to daily clean all of the playgrounds throughout town as a part of our COVID protocols. We've never stopped. And it dawned on us that the public probably wasn't aware that this was a safety precaution that we were continuing to do, but we're continuing to do it. And many thanks to our Parks Department. And that's really, that's all I have. Everything else will be in the e-newsletter tomorrow.
Okay, perfect. As well, I'm going to waive my supervisor's report, but I am going to say a few things in Community Corner. Again, for those who didn't tune in earlier, we moved some things around. We congratulated the boys varsity swim and dive team for their state and federation championship. So congratulations to them. In our Community Corner, we also want to wish a happy birthday to Ryan Sykes. His birthday is actually today, and he is officially a teenager, turning 13, which is very exciting. And Matthew Fioretti is turned 17 on March 20th. We announced that last week in our newsletter, but this is the first town board meeting we've had since then, so publicly announcing that. And our very own Rob Fleischer is having a birthday on Thursday, March 24th. So we want to wish him a very happy birthday. As always, if you have announcements, doesn't have to be a birthday, it can be anniversaries, promotions, anything you want to celebrate with the community. We would love to hear from you. You can send an email to communitycorner@mynewcastle.org. All right, that is all I had for Community Corner. So we also heard, just to give a recap, we moved our agenda around a little bit. We also heard from a Gabriel Paley on a Bee City presentation, which was very interesting. If you didn't hear that, I urge you to go back and watch the recap. He was excellent. And we had presentations from NYSERDA on the stretch code, as well as Sustainable Westchester, which we just heard all in the work session. So now I want to open it up to any public comment, new business. I don't think anyone here is going to speak, so is there anyone, Carrie, online? All right, then we are going to move right on to our resolutions. Is there anything in the consent agenda that anybody wanted to take out before we move along? All right, so do you want to start with the resolutions, Chara?
I move to adopt consent agenda as submitted, consisting of the following: adoption of minutes, February 2022, adoption of monthly reports, February 2022, authorization to post and hire 2 student interns, MWTP, authorization to approve 2021 general fund contingency funds and ratification of budget transfers for all funds, authorization to obtain bids for refuse and recycling for town-owned buildings, authorization to attend conference, recreation, and parks, authorization to obtain bids to replace stairs behind Gedney Park Field, authorization to enter into an agreement with CCSD regarding 2022 Summer Tots Camp, authorization to purchase 2 valves for the Millwood Water Treatment Plant, authorization to purchase repairs for DPW Mack Dump Plow Truck, authorization to release cash bond agreement 51 Cary Lane, authorization to rent conference rooms in Chapac Evening Out, authorization to approve banner request Evening Out, authorization to award bid for T-shirts recreation, authorization to declare surplus Luke machine.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Do you want me to keep it? Yep. Payment of claims, checks dated March 23rd, 2022. I move to approve payment of claims in the amount of $643,657.08. 2021 expenditures totaling $8,179.95, and 2022 expenditures totaling $635,477.13, listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detailed voucher detail reports, all dated March 18th, 2022. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant, listed on Wednesday, March 23rd, 2022.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Authorization to promote parks foreman. I move to authorize the salary increase of
Jonathan.
Marcondes to Group 16, Step 5, which carries the annual salary of $106,642.12, effective April 4th, 2022.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 You want to let Vicki?
Yeah,
go?
sure.
I move to authorize the hiring of Bella Sheth to the position of part-time receptionist within the Department of Public Works at the hourly rate of $18 per hour, effective April 4th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the hiring of Sam Mixell, Jack Engel, with an effective date of May 23rd, 2022, and Karen Sheth with an effective date of June 27th, 2022, for a period of 6 weeks at the rate of $1,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And those were for interns in the clerk's department, in the DPW clerk, right?
I move to authorize the change in employment status of Sean Gonder from full-time parking enforcement officer to part-time parking enforcement officer at the hourly rate of $30 for a maximum of 17.5 hours weekly, effective retroactively to March 21, 2022. This change is necessitated due to the decision made by the Westchester County Department of Human Resources.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chris, you want to take the next ones? Do you have it in front of you?
I prefer not to, if that's okay, just because
Okay.
of my condition.
Oh, yep, okay. Tara, you want to go?
I move to authorize appointment of Sanin to serve as an unpaid student intern at the Millwood Water Treatment Plant for a period of 5 weeks, effective March 29th to May 6, 2022.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to appoint Gabriel Paley as a student member of the Sustainability Advisory Board, SAB, for a 1-year term effective March 23rd, 2022 to March 22nd, 2023.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the appointment of Kenneth White to the Landmark Advisory Committee for a 3-year term effective March 23rd, 2022 to March 22nd, 2025.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the following appointments to the Conservation Board for 2 2-year terms effective March 22nd, 2022 to March 21st, 2024. New members Chris Hall, Angela Morgan, and Garrick Johnson, and the reappointment of Missy Fable, Karen Anton, and Victoria Alzapidi.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Vicki, you want to
Sorry,
go?
there was one piece I missed, actually.
No.
The appointment of...
we're not doing
Oh,
that.
no, okay.
I move to adopt the following resolution. Be it resolved that the attached schedule of changes for unpaid water for property shown on the tax rolls are hereby fixed and determined by the board and certified to the supervisor of the town of Newcastle. That such amounts are levied against the real property as set forth on the attached schedule of charges for unpaid water, that the same be raised by tax upon the real property in the town of Newcastle, liable therefore at that time and in the manner provided by the town law and Westchester County Administrative Code, and that the amount of such tax be stated in a separate column in the annual tax rolls of the town of Newcastle under a column entitled Water Rents.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to set a public hearing on a local law to amend Chapter 62, the Town of Newcastle Energy Code, and Chapter 74, Section 13, the Green Building Code of the Town of Newcastle, concerning the Newcastle Energy Code for...
Ed, how much time do we need? April 5, right? Yeah, April 5th.
for
Yeah.
April 5th, 2022 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as practicable as at Newcastle Town Hall Assembly Room.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Go on.
Sure.
I move to adopt the following resolution. Whereas on January 25th, 2022, the Town Board introduced a local law to amend Chapter 60 of the Town Code zoning to require affordable, affirmatively furthering fair housing, AFFH, units in certain new multifamily buildings in the BR and BRP zoning districts. And whereas by resolution adopted on February 1, 2022, the Town Board referred the local law to the Town of Newcastle Planning Board pursuant to Town Code Section 60-600, and the Westchester County Planning Board pursuant to New York General Municipal Law Section 239M and the Westchester County Administrative Code, and whereas by letter dated February 7, 2022, and memorandum dated February 18, 2022, respectively, the Westchester County Planning Board and the Newcastle Planning Board both expressed support for the local law, and whereas the Town Board held a public hearing on the proposed local law on February 15, 2022, which was continued to and closed on March 8, 2022, except for receipt of written comments by March 14, 2022 at 5 p.m., at which time which times all those wishing to comment on the local law had an opportunity to be heard. And whereas the local law constitutes a Type 2 action pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, 6 New York CRR Section 617.5 C 19 and 33. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adopts the local law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to adopt the following resolution, whereas on February 15th, 2022, the town board introduced a local law to amend Chapter 9 of the Town Code concerning the membership and the powers of the Board of Ethics of the Town of Newcastle, and whereas the proposed local law increases the number of members of the Board of Ethics from 5 to 7, eliminates the reference to alternate members, and grants the Board of Ethics the authority to render advisory opinions with respect to compliance with the town's social media and communications policy at the request of the town supervisor or any town board member. And whereas the town board held a public hearing on the proposed local law on March 8th, 2022, except for the receipt of written comments by March 14th, 2022 by 5:00 p.m., at which times all of those wishing to comment on the local law had an opportunity to be heard, and whereas the local law constitutes a Type 2 action pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act 6 NYSERDA 617.5 C 26 and 33. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adopts the local law.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to adopt the following resolution, whereas the New York State Department of Transportation proposes certain construction, reconstruction, and/or improvements as part of the culvert replacement project, Westchester County, towns of Newcastle, North Castle, North Salem, Yorktown, PIN 8815.44, the project, including certain work on Route 120 near Kip Street in the town of Newcastle, and whereas as part of the project, New York State DOT will be required to support and protect certain town water mains and appurtenances pursuant to Section 10, Subdivision 24 of the State Highway Law, as shown on the contract plans relating to the project. And whereas New York State DOT will furnish all labor, materials, and otherwise provide for the above-mentioned work, as shown on the contract plans relating to said project. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes New York State DOT to support and protect the water main and appurtenances in connection with the project as shown in the contract plans relating thereto. Be it further resolved that the town administrator is authorized to sign any and all documentation that may become necessary as a result of the project as it relates to the town of Newcastle, subject to review and approval by the town council. Be it therefore resolved that the town clerk is hereby directed to transmit 5 certified copies of the foregoing resolution to the New York State Department of Transportation.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Retired?
Chris?
Aye, sorry, it was on mute, sorry.
Thanks. All right, last one.
Okay. I move to adopt the following resolution, whereas on March 15, 2022, the town board resolved to schedule a public hearing on a proposed local law enacting a temporary moratorium, the proposed local law, and make certain referrals thereon to the Town of Newcastle Planning Board and the Westchester County Planning Department for comment thereon, and whereas the town board wishes to reschedule the public hearing on the proposed local law, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby amends the aforementioned resolution and reschedules the public hearing on the proposed local law for April 5th, 2022 at 7 p.m., or as soon thereafter as the matter is called on the agenda, in the Assembly Room of Newcastle Town Hall, 200 South Greeley Avenue, Chappaqua, New York, 10514.
Second.
Be it further resolved that in all other respects, the town board's resolution referring the proposed local law shall remain unchanged and in full force and effect.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else?
So we
Yes.
have the additional.
Oh, I have that. Oh, no, just,
I did not.
you just, can we just turn this email into a resolution?
No, there, you should have received an email from Lauren.
With a resolution for
With the
you.
resolution.
That's what we're.
For the B city?
No, for the.
Oh, I
this.
see it.
Lauren, it came at 8:48.
I have it.
Yeah, but are we, I don't know that we're not doing B City right now,
But-
right?
And,
Are
but
we?
then under B City, there was 2 that Lauren
Yes.
sent. She sent one at 7:34.
For the tank removal?
At 7:34, yep.
I released one of them. Okay. Whose turn is it?
It's just that one, right?
Yes, it's just this one.
I move to approve change order number 1 for Libro Engineers Incorporated for spill prevention, containment, and countermeasure plan in connection with the above-ground petroleum bulk storage tanks and equipment at the DPW facility, along with underground tank removal agreement for the total of $6,455.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In terms of B City, we just really saw this resolution, so do we need to just go through it and make sure specifically, I think we're all in favor of it, specifically as it references the comprehensive plan, which is referenced in here, just to make sure it's appropriate?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about it for a moment, but there was one part of that that caught my eye in terms of, I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but it was amending the comp plan to something about
want it?
supporting the designation. I'm not quite sure I'm in love with that language, but certainly supporting all of the goals and principles of the program would be something I think that we could amend for.
So can you, I do want to support us being designated as a B city, and I don't know if it needs to go in our comprehensive plan or if that's appropriate, or if there's a mechanism to do that, because by doing a resolution, we don't, like our comprehensive plan doesn't have resolutions.
You can amend
we have
it.
policies related to what's encompassed in there. So I'm wondering if it's appropriate to talk to this company, I forget their name, and just figure out what exact language they need. My guess is that a resolution is completely sufficient, but can we find that out before next week?
Sure, for April 5th.
For April 5th?
So we'll sort that out, and we'll have some.
Yeah, and we have time. If we adopt it April 5th, it's plenty of time before Earth Day. So, okay.
23rd, we're fine.
All right, perfect. Okay, so can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, good night. Thank you, everybody.
Met all.